Bless up. Dejo here, and I'm doing my part in the fight against COVID-19 by following all safety protocols and, most importantly, rolling up my sleeve for the vaccine. So I'm encouraging you to do the same, because that's our best shot of protecting ourselves, our family, and our friends. So don't wait, vaccinate. Let's roll up to roll out.
The coronavirus is still circulating among us and may be around for a very long time. This virus threatens the lives and vitality of older persons and other persons living with chronic medical conditions. Did you know that the number of chronic medical conditions we have can increase our risk of severe COVID-19 impact? Therefore, it is imperative that we make the right choices to safeguard our health and our future. We must continue to eat healthy, exercise regularly, and visit our healthcare provider for our annual medical checks. In addition, we must adopt the lifestyle protective measures such as washing our hands often, wearing a mask, social distancing, and strengthening our body's immunity with the COVID-19 vaccine. And if you already had the vaccines, take the booster. Although the world around us has changed, we still have a great chance to age gracefully and live healthy. For more information, visit your nearest health center or call 311 to speak with a COVID-19 hotline operator.
Our children deserve a chance to have a healthy and happy childhood. They should be able to enjoy their youth, have fun with their friends, learn in the comfort of a classroom, and interact with others in the community. That's why I chose vaccination. It has been over a year since the pandemic started, and our kids have been forced to adapt to new lifestyle changes.
Good afternoon and welcome to this brief handover ceremony. Please stand as I invite Pastor Lyndon Elliott to lead us in a word of prayer.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. And may I say, Ziahu, Hao, or Wuhan. Let us pray. Almighty God and Father in heaven, we have come by just to give you praise and thanks because you're an awesome God. You're mighty in all your ways. This afternoon, with Simply Helping Hands Foundation and the Office of the Honorable Prime Minister, we are delighted today to be here and to celebrate with the help and the initiatives that will benefit the people of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. We pray that you will continue to bless the Honorable Prime Minister in all his endeavors as he forges bilateral partnerships throughout the world for a better St. Kitts and Nevis. Bless this session. May your presence be felt, and may we indeed always give you praise, honor, and glory. We thank you for all those who are present here, the ambassador for Taiwan and all the other delegates. We pray that this moment would be an august one where we would celebrate partnerships, develop partnerships, widen partnerships, and in the process be able to indeed forge a better way for this federation. We thank you and we praise you for your continued blessing upon our lives. In Jesus' precious name, amen and amen. Amen.
Thank you very much, Pastor Elliott. You may now have your seats. Ladies and gentlemen, kindly allow me to establish the protocol by acknowledging our special invited guests this afternoon. Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris, Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis. The Honorable Wendy Phipps of... Wendy Phipps, she's not here. Okay, she's not here. His Excellency Michael Lin, Ambassador of the Republic of China, Taiwan. Mr. Osmond Petty, Permanent Secretary for the Ministry of National Security. Ms. Kay Bass, Permanent Secretary for Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Civil Aviation. Mr. Abdias Samuel, the National Disaster Coordinator at NEMA and the Chair of the National COVID-19 Task Force. Dr. Hazel Laws, Chief Medical Officer and the Co-Chair of the National COVID-19 Task Force. Dr. Cameron Wilkinson, Medical Chief of Staff at the JNF Hospital. Mrs. Oslin Ward Harris, Director of Social Services, and her team, who has been working really hard during this process. And also, I would wish to recognize the Honorable Vincent Byron Jr., Minister of Justice and Legal Affairs, Attorney General and Chair of the Disaster Mitigation Council. Ladies and gentlemen, this brief handover ceremony is between the governments of St. Kitts and Nevis and the Republic of China, Taiwan, represented by His Excellency Michael Lin, Ambassador of the Republic of China, Taiwan. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Michelle Rodriguez, NEMA's Public Relations Officer, and I'm honored to be your chair for this brief ceremony. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Abdias Samuel, National Disaster Coordinator of NEMA and Chair of the National COVID-19 Task Force, to give a brief remark.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and pleasant good afternoon to all, in particular those who are watching via our various social media platforms. Please allow me to adopt the protocols that has been ably established by Michelle Rodriguez, our Public Relations Officer. However, please allow me to recognize the members at the head table, in particular, Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris, Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, and the Line Minister for the Ministry of National Security, which NEMA falls under. Equally so, I want to acknowledge the Honorable Vincent Byron Jr., Minister of Justice, Legal Affairs, also our Attorney General and our esteemed Chair of the Disaster Mitigation Council, who oversees the work of the National COVID-19 Task Force. I also want to recognize the senior members of the task force who are present, as well as a number of our stakeholders. In particular, I want to take this opportunity to acknowledge Ms. Oslin Ward Harris and her team, who have been working very hard to ensure that this process goes through smoothly in distributing these items. I'm just going to provide a small overview of this project. So the Honorable Prime Minister would have contacted me while he was traveling overseas, as he knows our endeavor here at NEMA is to always strengthen our national response efforts to better position and prepare our people against the threat, risk associated with natural and man-made disasters. In this regard, the Honorable Prime Minister would have engaged Ms. Tina Bow, who is the President and Founder of Simply Help Foundation. We would have discussed some of the items needed, and today I am happy to announce to the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis that these items have been received to help us prepare for the 2022 Atlantic hurricane season, as well as to continue the fight against COVID-19. So, ladies and gentlemen, who is the Simply Help Foundation? The Simply Help Foundation is a non-profit organization based in Los Angeles, California. It is dedicated to relieving poverty by providing emergency disaster relief, vocational training, and shelter and care for the homeless and elderly. We are indeed thankful that Simply Help has extended its kind and generous assistance to the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. My understanding that this is a continuous effort. To date, we have received 2 40-foot containers valued at over $355,000 US. These supplies include, but not limited to, hand sanitizers, face shields, surgical masks, surgical gowns, as well as cloth and sports masks. We have also received blankets for children and also for adults, shirts, baseball caps, tams, and other clothing accessories. We are also in receipt of recreational items such as footballs and other type of toys for children. Household items for families were also sent to us here in St. Kitts and Nevis. In receipt of all of this, we have decided to solicit the services of the Social Services Department for them to carry out this distribution process. And I just spoke about hurricane preparedness. Let me just list some of the items that we received for hurricane preparedness. We have received some tarpaulins for dry weather. We have also received hurricane lamps, mini flashlights, handheld tools such as pliers, as well as personalized first aid kits so that we can actually fortify the family homes. Again, I want to take this opportunity to thank the Honorable Prime Minister for the role he has played in assisting not only the Federation, but the agency NEMO with its limited capacity and staff and resources to strengthen us and prepare us for what is ahead. I also wish to recognize a number of persons who would have assisted in this process. In particular, Mr. Jomo Butler, Acting Controller of Customs, and Senior System Controller of Customs, Ms. Lonlia Archibald, who would have walked the agency through the process. Equally so, I want to thank Mr. Freeman as Casper for making available his men to assist with the offloading of the containers into the NEMO warehouse. Ladies and gentlemen, as a small island developing state, only through fostering these regional and international relationships, we will be resilient against the impact of any particular disaster. Again, I want to express my gratitude to all who played a critical role in strengthening our preparedness and response measures here in St. Kitts and Nevis. So again, to the Honorable Prime Minister, you could have asked for many other things. You could have engaged in many other discussions. But Honorable Prime Minister, I really want to thank you on behalf of the agency and my staff here for giving the priority to strengthening our process here in St. Kitts and Nevis to ensure that we are able to meet the demands of our citizens and residents if and when we are impacted by any eventuality. So to you, sir, I say thank you and kudos. Please join me in giving the Honorable Prime Minister a well-deserved round of applause. And I must say, Ms. Tina Bow, the president and founder, is joining us all the way from Los Angeles. She's watching. I would have just had a discussion with her prior to coming up here. And to you, Tina, the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, as well as the government, we are appreciative of your team's effort to extend this generous donation to our federation. So again, please salute and give the gratitude to your team and your organization for this generous donation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Abdias Samuel. I will now invite His Excellency Michael Lin, Ambassador of the Republic of China, Taiwan, to give his presentation.
Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris, the Prime Minister, Honorable Vincent Byron, Minister of Justice and Legal Affairs, Attorney General, and the Chair of the Disaster Mitigation Council. Mr. Osman Baheti, the Permanent Secretary for Ministry of National Security. Ms. Kabas, the Permanent Secretary for Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And Ms. Abiyatus Samuel, the National Disaster Coordinator. Dr. Hazel Lowe, the Chief Medical Officer, and Dr. Cameron Wilkinson, Superintendent Cromwell Henry, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, friends from the media, good afternoon. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to the handing over ceremony this afternoon of the charity donation from Simply Help Foundation of these relief supplies to aid in the fight against COVID-19 and in preparation of the 2022 Atlantic hurricane season. Simply Help Foundation is a Taiwanese non-profit charity organization based in Los Angeles and founded by its president, Ms. Tina Bao, in Los Angeles, California. The foundation is dedicated to relief poverty by providing emergency disaster relief, vocational training, shelter, and care. In the past 7 years, Simply Help has dedicated to making donations to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. While in the visit in Los Angeles last October, Prime Minister Dr. Harris took the opportunity to have a meeting with Tina to facilitate the donation of these 2 40-foot containers of medical and relief supplies to the Federation. Today, on behalf of the Simply Help Foundation and the Tina, who is attending the handing over ceremony online, I would like to hereby handing over to the government of St. Kitts and Nevis a total of 2,177 boxes of relief supplies, including blankets, clothes, first aid kits, hand sanitizer, and a face mask, with a total value more than 356,000 US dollars. And my embassy is very happy to support the shipment fee, which costs about US dollars, 24,000 US dollars for the shipment. I believe this donation from Taiwanese organizations, NGOs, not only represent the full support from Taiwanese people to the COVID-19 pandemic response and hurricane disaster management in St. Kitts and Nevis, but it also demonstrates the staunch partnership between our 2 countries. In closing, I would like to thank the Simply Help Foundation for this charitable work. And I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to the government of St. Kitts and Nevis for its strong support in this donation project. May God bless us all, and I thank you very much.
I thank His Excellency Michael Lin, Ambassador of the Republic of China, Taiwan, for his presentation. I wish to acknowledge the Honorable Wendy Phipps, Minister of International Trade, Industry and Commerce, Consumer Affairs, and the Labor, and Mr. Cromwell Henry, Superintendent of the Royal St. Christopher and the Nevis Police Force. I will now invite, ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to invite Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris, Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, Minister of National Security, Office of the Prime Minister, Minister of Finance, et al., to give us his presentation.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. I want to recognize Cabinet colleagues, the Honorable Vincent Byron, our Attorney General, the Honorable Wendy Phipps, our Minister of Trade et al., senior functionaries of the government, and of course, Ambassador of the Republic of China and Taiwan, Michael Lin, and other representatives of the embassy here, and to thank you for coming out in a show of support for the wonderful work that is being done and has been done for us by the Simply Help Foundation. The principle behind this is Tina Bo. a very unassuming woman who did remarkably well for herself, and then determined that he would spend the rest of her life helping others and pursuing humanitarian causes. That has taken her to Asia and has taken her to Latin America, doing many good deeds. Last October, as I journeyed to LA, I was made, she came to my acquaintance as a result of some messages from our ambassador here, Michael. And while in LA, I had the opportunity to meet Tina and to visit some of her warehouses where she would readily provide support to citizens of the world wherever they were in need. In fact, at the time I visited, she was assembling a number of containers, perhaps 3 containers, to go to Haiti. Haiti at that time was, and still remain, in a situation of distress. And as we met and we spoke, and I thank her for previous donation of supplies, I think it was to our schools, we got into other things, and she invited me to the warehouse. And while they asked what she can do for St. Kitts, I reached out to our hard-working director at NEMO, Mr. Abdia Samuel, and we had a discussion, and I put to her that we were still in a royal battle with COVID-19, and supplies of medical supplies would be very useful in our efforts. Additionally, we were minded of the role of NEMO, and we had to be resilient in the face of storms and hurricanes, and she wanted to make a contribution to this particular effort. And again, Mr. Samuel provided a list of items that would be necessary. Today we are seeing a sample of some of them. What I would say from my conversations with her recently, further supplies will be forthcoming. These are in fact delayed largely on account of the supply chain difficulties that have been experienced around the world. And so we had expected that some of the things would have been here before, but they were delayed. I know as she attempted to fill the container, again as it was getting close to the Yuletide season, one had suggested that some items of toys would be well welcomed by our children. All in all, we are seeing here that individuals at their own level, and not just state alone, play a critical role in diplomacy and in bringing relief, support, and help to citizens everywhere. Powerful citizens all over the world are doing a lot to make the world a better place, a more compassionate place, and Tinabo is one such citizen. And in fact, in many respects, when we begin to look at it, the support that we have had from Tina and the support that can come from resourceful citizens around the world can in fact be much more than we can get through bilateral cooperations with a number of countries. So I want to congratulate Tina for being a successful businesswoman in her early years, for being converted into a philanthropist, and to continue to give back to persons who are in need, wherever they are, in all corners of the world. And I want to thank the Republic of China, Taiwan. She is a citizen of the country of Taiwan, and she was introduced to us through the embassy here. So I want to thank Michael for developing and extending that friendship to us, which we are now honing and developing for the good of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. And I want to again extend an invitation to Tina to come and to visit us and to understand us more and to see what makes the citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis tick. I want to thank again NEMA for its work, wonderful work in coordinating, and I want to thank all those who will be involved in ensuring that the supplies reach to those most in need of them. So I've come really to say thank you publicly to Tina, because I had engaged her and she has responded positively, and today we are witnessing the arrival of these supplies, which would add well to the stock of desirable items in the homes of the families that need them. So to you, Tina, again, I know that you are a lady very humble and yet very thoughtful, not liking too much of the spotlight. So I say thank you. And to all the many friends, sponsors, and benefactors with whom you coordinated to ensure that supplies totaling close to 1 million EC dollars could be made available to St. Kitts and Nevis in these 2 containers. So may God continue to prosper you, and perhaps more importantly, may He continue to prosper our country and people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris. I will now invite Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris, Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, and His Excellency Michael Lin, Ambassador of the Republic of China, Taiwan, to come forward at this time.
Effective face shields.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And now I will invite Mrs. Oslin Ward Harris, Director of Social Services, to do the vote of thanks.
A pleasant good evening to all listening. I do beg leave to adopt all protocols that have been established for this evening's proceedings. In bringing this brief but undoubtedly significant ceremony to a conclusion, it is indeed an immense honor on behalf of the Office of the NDC and Relief Subcommittee Chair to proffer expressions of gratitude to all who have contributed in their various ways leading up to the execution of this handing over ceremony. Such efforts include the provision, processing, and the upcoming distribution of non-food, COVID relief, and disaster supplies, and by extension, the ceremony, which signals the official handing over of items donated. Permit me firstly to specially acknowledge and extend profound gratitude to Ms. Tina Bo and the Simply Help organization for the extensive support that have been provided via the generous amount of supplies received. We extend sincere thanks to you for sharing your heart with us in such an extensive way, and for this, I earnestly believe that you are deserving of a hearty round of applause. We are highly cognizant and deeply appreciative of your demonstrated commitment to heightening the overall capacity of institutions to deliver service to our people in a safe and efficient manner. The esteemed speakers before me have expounded on the multiplicity of benefits to be derived from the utilization of these invaluable items, particularly benefactors who will certainly be grateful. A heartfelt commendation is extended to all attendees, various stakeholders and other entities such as CASPA's team of hard-working men who have given of their time to facilitate the processing and preparation for the distribution of the supplies to primarily institutions. Your contribution undoubtedly would augment and richly enhance relief efforts going forward. Indeed, the nature and degree of your participation and contribution is crucial for the seamless delivery of this undertaking. Let me proffer much gratitude to diligent staff members of NEMA and also the tirelessly supportive team at the Department of Community Development and Social Services, and by extension, the Ministry of Social Development and Gender Affairs. To all those who participated in this evening's ceremony, as well as those who were involved in its planning and execution, a hearty thank you is extended for your commitment, and we applaud you for your collective robust contributions to ensure this ceremony's success. In particular, we are extremely grateful to Mrs. Michelle Rodriguez for so ably chairing this evening's ceremony and bringing such a high level of coherence to it. Thank you. Without fail, we thank Pastor Lyndon Elliott for his crucial role of invoking God's blessings on the proceedings. To the hard-working NDC, Mr. Abdias Samuel, we absolutely appreciate your gracious welcome and remarks, and also overview regarding this critical relief effort for which you have oversight. Let's give him a round of applause. His Excellency, Michael Lin, Ambassador of the Republic of China on Taiwan, the government of St. Kitts and Nevis continues to extend its long hand of partnership in providing much-needed support to relief efforts here. Your critical role played in the realization of this much-needed initiative is acknowledged and appreciated with sincerity. Indisputably, we are grateful to you, our Prime Minister, Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris, for your thrust towards facilitating the receipt of these meaningful supplies. Your remarks have assured us of your ministries and your government support and commitment to enhancing and safeguarding the lives of our beloved people. Finally, to all of you present and those of you listening via radio and internet, thank you for accepting the invitation to this historic handing over ceremony prior to the distribution of these donated relief supplies. Your presence not only reflects the broad reach of involvement, but hopefully it is indicative of a keen interest in forging deeper partnerships towards sustainable social and economic development. Once again, I wish you a most splendid evening, and a heartfelt thank you is extended for listening. May God bless us all.
Thank you, Mrs. Harris. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of this brief handover ceremony. We will now take a short commercial break, and please stay tuned for the briefing.
It's only just a phase. Once we're vaccinated, and everybody gonna be safe. Everybody gonna be safe. One kind, yeah. One people. We are roll up to roll up, yeah. 'Cause no man's alone. Do what's right, alright. 'Cause I love you, brother, my sister. And we're in this together, my sister, my brother. I don't wanna lose you. I love you too much. I think it's better for us, yeah, yeah. It's better for us, yeah. I don't wanna lose you. I love you too much, yeah, yeah. It's better for us than your mommy to daddy roll out.
Bless up. Dejo here, and I'm doing my part in the fight against COVID-19 by following all safety protocols and, most importantly, rolling up my sleeve for the vaccine. So I'm encouraging you to do the same, because that's our best shot of protecting ourselves, our family, and our friends. So don't wait, vaccinate. Let's roll up to roll out.
health management refers to the measures people take to manage their own health. You and I should remember to wash hands often with soap and water, or use alcohol-based hand sanitizer. Avoid touching your eyes, mouth, and nose. Take your temperature morning and evening. Watch for symptoms. Persons with diabetes or hypertension are reminded to take your medication regularly as prescribed. If you have no symptoms, you may carry out your normal routine and boost your immune system. When you are outside, avoid public spaces and wear a mask at all times. If you develop symptoms, put on a mask and seek medical care. Do not take public transportation. Inform the doctor of your travel history, any contact with confirmed or suspected cases, your occupation, and whether anyone around you has similar symptoms. If you become ill, please rest at home. Wear a mask and isolate yourself from others in your household. If you share a bathroom, disinfect daily using 1 part bleach to 10 parts water. Everyone must work together to reduce the spread of the coronavirus.
Our children deserve a chance to have a healthy and happy childhood. They should be able to enjoy their youth, have fun with their friends, learn in the comfort of a classroom, and interact with others in the community. That's why I chose vaccination. It has been over a year since the pandemic started, and our kids have been forced to adapt to new lifestyle changes. Therefore, it is my job to ensure that they enjoy a childhood free of isolation and restrictions without fear and worry. While we continue to wash our hands, wear our masks, and practice social distancing, let's take it one step further and do our part as parents to help our children stand a greater chance at fighting this virus. Visit the nearest health center or call the Ministry of Health for assistance. We all have a role to play, so let's roll up to roll out.
Everyone is encouraged to adopt a healthy and positive approach to daily life. Here are a few friendly reminders.
When you go to the local market and food vendors, remember to maintain a social distance of 6 feet or 2 meters apart. And always wear your mask.
Always keep your hands clean. Wash your hands with soap and water or use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer.
When dining, choose restaurants with staggered seating. This will lower the risk of transmission.
If you have a fever, cough, or other respiratory symptoms, please wear a mask and seek medical care immediately. Rest at home and do not visit the food vendors, local markets, or restaurants.
The coronavirus is still
is on.
Good day and welcome again to our National Emergency Operations Center COVID-19 briefing for Wednesday, the 9th of February, 2022. I am Les Roy Williams. Thank you very much for joining us for our briefing today as you continue to be an important part of the management of the COVID-19 pandemic here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Of course, we know that even though there has been a lot of progress being made in the management of the pandemic worldwide, we still have to contend with the fact that the pandemic is still with us, and we have to manage it as best as we could so that our economy and our social lives can get back on track. I want to invite first to the podium to give us his presentation Dr. Cameron Wilkinson, our Medical Chief of Staff at the Joseph N. France General Hospital.
Thank you very much, Mr. Samuels. Sorry, Mr. Williams. Yes. Yeah, that's right, yes. My presentation today is, are we ready now to live with COVID and move forward with a sense of normalcy? We have been fighting the threat of COVID-19 for over 2 years now. Many are battle-weary and thought it would long be over, but the stark reality is that COVID-19 will continue to have a presence in our communities for some time to come. The lightning-fast spread of Omicron has made the virus difficult to contain and shifted the approach from zero COVID-19 to living with COVID in our communities. Its presence should, however, not continue to be a death sentence for some, nor one that disrupts our everyday lives, as was the case in the early months of this pandemic. We are in a much better place today than we were a year ago, thanks to science and the development of safe and effective vaccines. It is our high threshold of vaccination coverage that is giving us the latitude to do more despite the fact that the virus is still with us. Unfortunately, some turned a blind eye to the science and have suffered the consequences, paying the price with severe disease, while others paid the ultimate sacrifice with their life. Others will continue to suffer from severe disease and continue to die if they continue to ignore the fact that 10.3 billion doses of vaccines have already been safely administered globally, with a dramatic reduction in severe disease, hospitalizations, and deaths due to COVID-19 disease. We launched our vaccination program on the 22nd of February 2021 and have had a very successful adult rollout, with now 82.3% of adults with one shot and 76.9% fully vaccinated. We continue to encourage all who should be vaccinated to go out and be vaccinated. We specifically would like to see a greater vaccine uptake among our 12 to 17-year-olds, as so far we have only 18.2% with at least one shot and 16.1% fully vaccinated. Variants will continue to appear as long as people remain unvaccinated, and it does not follow, as some assume, that the next variant will be milder. Those who are vaccinated are more likely to rid themselves of the virus more quickly compared to those who are unvaccinated. This means that the virus has less time to multiply and less chance to mutate in those who are fully vaccinated. The World Health Organization is currently tracking 4 sublineages of the Omicron variant of concern, including BA2. Right now, Omicron is a dominant strain globally and presents less severe disease than Delta and other variants that preceded it. We must be reminded that less severe disease compared to previous variants does not mean mild disease. The Omicron variant, now accounting for 99.9% of the cases in the United States, is proving to be even deadlier than the Delta variant because as more people become infected because of its high transmissibility, it has contributed to more deaths. The USA has now passed the grim milestone of 900,000 deaths. We here have added another 2 deaths over the last week, bringing our death toll to 39, with 11 so far in this last wave. All the deaths so far have been in unvaccinated adults with pre-existing conditions. The Omicron variant still presents a significant threat of severe disease to the vulnerable. This is why we have been pleading with you to get the best protection, which is the vaccine. We may have passed the peak in the 4th wave, but the pandemic is not over, and there is still the risk of future surges. When we say we have to learn to live with COVID, it means that we will have to move forward with our everyday life, accepting a certain level of risk the virus poses, disease and deaths cause. It comes down to how much disease and deaths we are willing to tolerate. If we all play our part in this fight, we should be able to keep the viral transmission rate very low, the number of hospitalized patients low, and our death rate as close as possible to 0 as we navigate our way towards normalcy. The tough questions to be asked and addressed are: 1, what would be considered an acceptable number of COVID-19 deaths in order for us here locally or the world at large to carry on as normal? And 2, are we all willing to play our part in limiting preventable disease and death, or will some stand idle and continue to see people die by their irresponsible action or inaction? We have had a number of preventable COVID deaths, but we should not have any more. Every life is precious, and everyone deserves a lifetime. We must all understand, therefore, that as we move forward learning to live with COVID, the risk of severe disease and death will not completely disappear. The unprotected and the clinically vulnerable are the groups that will continue to be at greatest risk of death from the virus if not given the best protection available through vaccination. These groups include the frail, the elderly, and those with multiple medical conditions like diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, and kidney disease. If they happen also to be unvaccinated, they will be placed at a major disadvantage. We therefore need to ensure that all get the best protection, which is to be vaccinated. Let us stop fighting among ourselves about the use of non-pharmaceuticals and vaccines that we know can save lives. We must therefore, as we move forward, not throw caution to the wind and continue to adopt the COVID-19 appropriate behavior that we know will suppress viral spread, and also should make sure that everyone who should be vaccinated get vaccinated. We must now move with a fierce urgency to protect the vulnerable and reduce their chance of getting infected. As countries, including ours, relax restrictions on travel and mass gatherings and absorb more risk, it will be important for individuals to calculate their risk and the risk they pose to those that they interact with as we attempt to navigate these new norms. This is important because no matter our age, if we are out and about in our communities, there is a strong likelihood that we are going to get exposed and we may well get infected with COVID-19. There could be 2 persons of the same age and build shouting maskless at a football game with completely different risk of exposure to themselves and others. One could be single, vaccinated, healthy, and living alone, and the other unvaccinated with multiple medical conditions and living with an elderly mother, grandmother, or school-age kids. The level of risk they pose to themselves and others if they took the virus home could be significantly different. We have seen this played out here over and over again as most of our elderly COVID patients got infections while being at home. If you choose to go out, please make a calculation of your risk and that you will pose to your loved ones and the risk associated with the event you plan to attend. You need to make a quick assessment of your household, your community, the event you're planning to attend, and the mode of transportation you plan to take before you head out. So one may ask, how do I do this risk assessment? You need to ask yourself a few simple questions before you decide to attend any activity. One, you need to look at your household and ask, do I have persons living with me who are vulnerable, the very old, the very young, persons with multiple medical conditions? Are they unvaccinated? Because if you were to take the virus home to them, the outcome could be disastrous. Two, you need to look at the community. Is the infection rate climbing? Because if it is, you may want to limit your exposure. And you can simply compare the number of positive cases from 1 week to another that we present on the tile. If that number is climbing from week to week, you may opt to miss a mass gathering and protect yourself. Then you need to look at the venue or the event and ask yourself, is the activity outdoors? Is the place well ventilated? And can I social distance at the event? Or is it indoors, poorly ventilated, with no room for social distancing? Will I be in contact with high-touch surfaces? Will I be able to frequently hand sanitize? Will people at the event be wearing masks? What is the crowd size? Because the less persons there, the lower your risk. And what is the duration of the event? Because the shorter the duration, the less your risk. And you also need to ask, are the organizers known for sticking to COVID-19 appropriate prevention measures? And lastly, you need to look at the transportation and know that it is safer to take private transportation rather than public transportation. So in closing, I want to stress the importance of personal responsibility as we move forward. Omicron may be less severe for the young, but could still be a death sentence for the elderly. Protect yourself and those around you through the use of the non-pharmaceuticals and get vaccinated as we attempt to navigate this new norm, and make sure that you limit your exposure. As my mother used to say, it's not every pan knock that you have to be present at, and so even if we open up to mass gatherings, you can make a calculated risk whether or not you would choose to attend these events. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wilkinson. I would like now to invite our Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Hazel Laws, to present us with the Health Emergency Operations Center, Committee report for today. Of course, you know, the color red Dr. Laws is wearing is in time for Valentine's.
Good afternoon, Mr. Williams, and pleasant good afternoon to all who are present and who are tuned in to this program. The COVID-19 pandemic has been affecting us for over 2 years. The COVID-19 pandemic has impacted health across the world, across the globe. It has impacted our health system in the Federation. It has impacted our economies, the livelihoods, and the earning potential of our people. The COVID-19 pandemic has impacted social life as we know it. We are no longer able to attend functions like we used to. There are so many restrictions. The COVID-19 pandemic has impacted us psychologically. We are social beings and we yearn to get close, to hug and kiss and interact with our friends and loved ones. But on the other hand, we have to maintain that adequate space and distance between ourselves and others to protect our lives or to protect ourselves. The COVID-19 pandemic has impacted the education sector at all levels, the tertiary level, secondary level, primary level, and even at the early childhood stage. Students have been asked to adjust their minds to learning virtually as opposed to face-to-face. COVID-19 pandemic has impacted all facets of our lives. We are tired. We are tired of COVID. The year 2021, during 2021, we experienced much frustration and anxiety as we maneuvered our way through the second and third wave of the COVID-19 infections. The pandemic disrupted our lives. And again, as I said, our children have been impacted. Children develop through interaction and socialization with their peers, and this has been hampered. If you look at the news today, we see what's happening in Canada. We are tired of COVID. This afternoon, I want to focus on hope for 2022. COVID-19 is not going away anytime soon. However, we are hopeful that the emergency phase of the pandemic will end sometime this year, 2022. In other words, COVID-19 will become a mere endemic disease. And this will occur because of the high level of immunity from the vaccination rollout and immunity from natural infection. We are certainly not out of the woods as yet. COVID is still a serious threat to the most vulnerable. Dr. Wilkinson just spoke about that. We've lost 11 of our older adults recently. And so we are definitely not out of the woods. And the older adults amongst us remain vulnerable. However, the majority of us are well protected with highly effective vaccines, and we have a much lower individual risk of ending up in the hospital. And so because of the combination of the vaccines and the increase in knowledge about COVID and how to treat COVID, the hospitalization rates and the death rates are much lower than in 2020 and 2021. And so, ladies and gentlemen, there is light at the end of the tunnel. And so for 2022, there is hope that we will approach some level of normalcy. There is a realistic prospect that 2022 will be the year we can begin to live with COVID without much of the fear and anxiety that marked 2020 and 2021. But the most important thing to note is that the COVID-19 vaccination continues to be our strongest line of defense to the pandemic. The COVID-19 vaccination continues to be our strongest line of defense. It provides our people that added layer of protection against moderate to severe disease, adequate layer of protection against hospitalization and even death. And we have to underscore that. And so it's almost 1 year since we've rolled out our COVID-19 vaccination program, and to date, 82.3% of the adults in our population have received the first dose, and 76.9% have received the second dose. 8.8% of the adults have come forward in terms of requesting the booster shot, and we are happy for this. Please note that if you've received the primary dose or the primary series, meaning your first 2 doses of the COVID-19 vaccine, and 5 months has elapsed, you can easily come in and request the booster. 18.3% of our children 12 to 17 years have come in and received their first dose, and 16.1% of the children 12 to 17 are fully vaccinated. We want to encourage the other children within this age band to come forward and get vaccinated. with respect to the entire or the total population, 55.5% of the total population is fully vaccinated. In St. Kitts, 80.4% of the adults fully vaccinated, and in Nevis, 67.4%. In terms of the children, 17.1% of those 12 to 17-year-olds fully vaxxed. In Nevis, 13.6%. We have yet another global or international target to achieve. Let's remember it was around, October last year. St. Kitts was one of the first territories in this region to pass the 40% mark, or the 40% coverage mark. Now, WHO has set yet another global target. The aim is for all territories globally to achieve the 70% coverage with COVID-19 vaccines by June of this year. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are well on our way. Already, 55.5% of our population fully vaccinated. We just have to go the extra step to achieve this global target. Now, in terms of what we are doing on the ground to contain the fourth wave, we are doing quite a good job. Within this past week, only 42 cases were diagnosed as compared to 115 last week. And we continue to see our cases recover, with 208 recoveries between February the 2nd and February the 8th, as compared to 322 in the previous week. Now, during this fourth wave, between December the 24th to February the 8th, we've added 2,666 cases. In the second wave, we added 500 cases. In the third wave, we added 2,098 cases. And in this fourth wave, we've added 2,666 to our tally. The recoveries, 2,503 of these cases have recovered, and so we are monitoring 175 active cases. To date, during this fourth wave, we've counted 10 COVID-19 related deaths. We are going to update that. We're going to add an additional one this evening. So to date, we've had 11 COVID-19 related deaths in this fourth wave alone. We want to pause at this time to extend our sincere sympathy to the family and loved ones of those who have passed as a result of COVID-19. Next slide. I think we had a question that referred to the number of children who have been impacted by COVID in this fourth wave. And so between December 24th to present, 231 of the 2,666 cases are children. 63 between the age of 0 to 5 years, 65, 6 to 11 years, and those 12 to 17-year-olds, we've had or diagnosed 103 cases in that age band. So 231 children have had COVID during this fourth wave. Having said that, in terms of the Ministry of Education and the education sector, school just opened, and we have been collaborating with the Ministry of Education, and to date we've only noted isolated cases of teachers and students at the early childhood level, the primary school level, secondary school level, who are impacted by COVID. Just isolated cases. We've not noted any clusters as yet. Now, in terms of this fourth wave, as I said, there are now 11 deaths. The slide says 10, but it's 10 plus 1, with 10 St. Kitts and 1 Nevis. All the recent deaths, they were unvaccinated. And the age range, they are all older adults. I think between the age of 68 and 92 years. So they are all older adults with underlying chronic conditions. This gives you a summary of the current situation. St. Kitts and Nevis, we've reported a total of 5,488 confirmed cases of COVID-19, and 5,275 of these have fully recovered. We are monitoring 175 cases, with 22 cases active on Nevis, 153 cases active on St. Kitts. The death toll is, as a result of COVID, overall for the Federation, 38 plus 1 or 39. Total deaths, 39. You realize that males, about 2/3 of the cases were males, just about 1/3 female, and about 90% of those who have died as a result of COVID are unvaccinated, and they have underlying chronic conditions. Just this data tells us that the older adults amongst us, those who are unvaccinated, and those with underlying chronic conditions, including diabetes, CVA, that's stroke or cerebrovascular accidents, and renal disease, they are quite vulnerable and at risk for moderate to severe disease. And so we are pleading to those individuals amongst us, the older adults, please come on board. Please reconsider your position regarding the vaccine and provide yourself that layer of protection against moderate to severe disease. Provide yourself that additional layer of protection against hospitalization and death. If you have not yet taken the vaccine, we are begging you, please, to come on board and give yourself that additional layer of protection. Okay, so the latest information regarding COVID, it was towards the end of November 2021, we heard about Omicron. Now, today, we are hearing that the Omicron variant is not just one single strain. It's now a family of 3 strains or sublineages. Okay? So Omicron variant is no longer one strain. It's now a family of 3 strains or sublineages. And so you have the BA1 strain, the BA2 strain, and the BA3 strain. So the BA1 strain is the original Omicron variant or strain that came to the fore in November of last year. And then the BA2 strain is now, being found and identified in an increasing number of countries, and it's, giving the BA1 strain stiff competition, and it seems to be even more transmissible than the BA1 strain. The BA3 is the newest one, and it may be just 100 or 200 cases identified so far. And so the BA2 strain is identified in an increasing number of countries globally. They are quite different in terms of their mutations. The World Health Organization has not yet labeled BA2 a separate variant of concern. They're still linked as the family of Omicron variant or Omicron strains. The WHO officials have repeatedly warned that new variants will arise as Omicron spreads across the world at an unprecedented rate. And so the latest information in terms of the characteristics of BA2 will unfold over the next few days and weeks. Ladies and gentlemen, the COVID-19, the non-pharmaceutical measures remain very, very important as we try to contain this 4th wave and to protect ourselves from COVID in terms of accepting the vaccine, which is our best line of defense. You're wearing your face mask, maintaining hand hygiene and adequate distance when in public spaces and when attending meetings, functions, school, and church, funerals, etc. And very important, if you are experiencing any of the COVID-like symptoms, we want you to stay at home and get tested and not intermingle and interact with others to spread. What are these signs and symptoms? Backaches, aches, muscle aches, pains, fever, chills, feeling extremely cold when everyone else around you seems to be okay, coughing, sore throat, stuffiness, runny nose, coughing, and shortness of breath. These are some of the main signs and symptoms of COVID. If you're experiencing any of these, please, please stay at home, not intermingle, get tested. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Laws. I now invite Superintendent Cromwell Henry to give us his presentation on the regulations.
Thank you very much, Mr. Williams. I think by now we're all experts on the regulations because we have been hearing about the regulations week after week. And I'm almost certain that everybody are quite familiar with what the regulation says. And so today my presentation would be very short. We are satisfied that the public is sufficiently educated on all COVID-19 prevention measures, educated on your responsibilities and your obligations under the various laws and regulations. We have been coming here week after week informing you of all these measures, and we are seeing the efforts of most of you to be compliant, and for that we say thank you. We want to remind you, though, that the measures are not intended to be punitive, as some persons may feel, but they are rather preventative in nature. We recognize that some of the measures may have caused some inconvenience to some persons, but we want to assure you that the inconvenience will be short-lived and only temporary. As mentioned previously, the restrictions on social activities and mass gatherings will be very shortly be eased, and so we ask for your continued patience in this regard. In closing, I want to again admonish you to continue to adhere to all the prevention protocols, wearing face masks when in public, avoid crowds and crowded places, practice good hand hygiene and other sanitization behavior, maintain a physical distance of 6 feet when you are in public, and of course, get vaccinated if that is possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Henry. I now invite Mr. Abdia Samuel, the Chair of the National COVID-19 Task Force and the National Disaster Coordinator here at NEMA, to give us his presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Williams, and a pleasant good evening to all. My presentation is going to be rather brief, but rather just to say to you that you have heard the clarion call for personal responsibility for us here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. You would have listened to the presentation and the appeal made by Dr. Cameron Wilkinson. You would have listened to the presentation made by Dr. Laws in terms of what would it take for us to be protected, and you would have listened to what the law enforcement through Superintendent Henry would have indicated to you in terms of compliance. I just want to say to you that we have reached a point where we now have to transition into the endemic of this pandemic. And the responsibility has to now shift to you. You have to now take that personal responsibility now to take us to where we need to go in terms of moving forward. What does this mean? This means, as Dr. Wilkinson said, you will have to make that choice that when mass events resumes, that you will, whether you will go or you will not go. Whether you will go and get vaccinated to protect your family and friends who live with you or who you associate with and socialize with, or you're going to be reckless and decide to take a chance and probably or maybe lose your life or have some long-term COVID effect that would affect you in the long run, or you're just going to remain in whatever state you desire. We have to transition. What does this mean by transitioning? Meaning that we are going to gradually ease the restrictions. It means that a number of the protocols that are in place may be removed, and this also means that the government in itself also will now look at that economic recovery in terms of taking the country back to that competitive economic activity. Now, I say this to say because of the numerous calls I have been getting about the comparison between sports, entertainment having a fit, and the persons comparing things to church, etc. I think we have done a reasonable job in ensuring that we protect you. That's the state doing everything possible to ensure that it applies and distributes its resources to where it need to go in order to protect you. I think we have done a marvelous job in doing so. Now it's time to move on. You are seeing more cruise ships at our piers. You are seeing some normalities in terms of vendors and operators, stakeholders within the tourism industry functioning now. We're not getting those complaints. We're not hearing everything, no biasness. You're not hearing anything. What you are seeing, though, is the activity. Case in point, you see the many tours happening. That in itself should be an eye-opener to you that we are moving now and transitioning into the endemic stage. You will also see when we move gradually into that stage, as advised by our medical team, or experts, sorry, when the regulation themselves will have to be changed, meaning these particular briefings or risk communication initiatives, they will slowly start to lessen, meaning we may just move from weekly briefing to maybe monthly briefing to eventually no briefing at all. It also means that at some point in time, the task force in itself, it's not like it's going to be, disassembled or, broken apart, but at some point in time, we're going to have to transition from that task force committee into something different. So all that is going to happen eventually once we don't see any major outbreak. So I say all of that to say is that you're going to see some changes. For example, the sporting. We would have met with SCABA and its executive on Tuesday, and we were quite pleased by some of the information they shared. There was some information that we want from them to ensure that when they start the league, they don't encounter any challenges. Again, the football, the grassroots, the youth, that already has started. The female league, we are going to be working with the senior men's league so that that league could also start. That in itself is an indicator for you that we are transitioning. We have also agreed that a number of the activities, because we have Valentine's coming up, we have the Super Bowl. I don't know if Dr. Wilkinson knows the difference between a first down, second down, third down, but I will teach him. We have the Super Bowl coming up, and then, I'm a football fan. I played football in the United States. I was a cornerback and I was a wide receiver. And I am a fanatic, and I know the atmosphere that comes with that. And I want to appeal to all the bar owners and everybody else who are saying that they will not be able to make any type of, economic activity, they won't make no earnings, etc. Don't just say it. Test the system. Make an application. Make the case to the commissioner that you will create the environment under the regulations right now for you to be considered to provide these services under the circumstances that we are facing right now. I think we are at a reasonable stage. Without an application and a denial, you don't have a case. Word of mouth cannot stand, because I'm certain Superintendent Henry has not told you no out of just saying it. If you have something to say, well, Superintendent Henry deny me, right, then you have a case. But don't just say about because the police ain't doing it, well, I'm not, or whoever the task force. bring something solid to the floor. So again, make your applications. I think it's superintendent 72 hours before the activity, and then you will have an argument once you make that application. So if you have not made an application, you have not done anything to get approval or a denial, then sorry, you don't have an argument. But we are shifting now from pandemic to endemic unless we see a major outbreak in the country. And I think we have seen the steady trend towards that downward trajectory towards recovery. So this is where we are heading right now. In terms of entertainment, again, I want to speak to that. We said to you in March. Saying to you in March does not mean that you cannot make an application for an activity, and I think Superintendent Henry has been making that point over and over. Apply, make your case, and then if you are denied or if you are approved, then you have your case, either or. An approval does not mean that you automatically can have 1,500 persons in an activity that was only granted 50. No. So when the team comes around and you have violated, of course, there will be consequences. So I just wanted to put that out there for the entertainment sector, the sporting sector, and the community at large. Unless you apply and you are denied, then you don't have an argument. You will have an argument if you apply and you are denied and you feel like you are being treated unjustly. So I wanted to make that clear today. I also want to speak to one last thing for me is the vaccination process. Let me encourage persons, please, go get boosted. If you're not vaccinated, go get vaccinated. You see all these members who are sitting here. You have Dr. Wilkinson, you have Dr. Laws, you have Superintendent Henry, you have Lesroy Williams, you have the Attorney General, you have Minister Phipps, you have the ZIZ crew, you have Miss Christmas Jacob, you have Ledger and James, and you have Ophelia Blanchard. We are tired. We have been fighting a long battle. And unless you do your part to help us get out of this, we may have to continue this fight longer. Yes, we have the fire to fight, but yes, we have the fire to do other things as well. Okay? So the task force does not want to remain in no power grip because we don't have no power. All we are doing is serving. The power is within the federal cabinet of ministers. Unless they say yeah or nay, we cannot move forward with any type of recommendation. I just want to make that categorically clear for a lot of individuals. So we need to move forward. Everybody needs to accept their personal responsibility. And that's my key word for today, personal responsibility. So apply for your events. Hotels, you will see hotels having their events. We have to make sure that the tourism product remains relevant and competitive. Most of the hotels right now, some of them are full. Others are not. Some of them are full. They have groups, etc. They will have their entertainment. You put forward your plan. You can have your entertainment. Put forward your plan. What we are saying, mass events, we are coming to you just now. And when these start to happen, personal responsibility. Simple. Now, in terms of travel, we would have seen that one of the major airlines, in that of American Airlines, would have canceled several flights from Miami, and that would have challenged a number of our citizens. There's a lab called Family Rehab, and it's located on the arrival floor between gates 10 and 12 at the Miami International Airport. If you need to retest because your test expired and you're not being allowed to board the aircraft, please go to this particular area. You can get a test done within a 2 to 3 hour period. Okay? Again, let me advise that you can go to the Family Rehab Lab. It's located between gates 10 and 12 at the arrival terminal at the Miami International Airport. Once you go there with the within sufficient time, then you can actually be assisted. It will cost you. I don't know the cost, but it will cost you like everything else. And we will do our best to continue to facilitate you at the help desk. If you make a call and the help desk don't answer you in the first call, continue to call, send emails so that you can get an answer. So with that said, I want to encourage all the travelers to exercise caution. You may face delays. You may also face challenges in terms of having outdated tests, and I just gave you a solution for you to deal with your test. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to have a happy Valentine's. For the Super Bowl, I got my team. I am back in the Buffalo Bills. Cameron, who you going with? The winner, okay, right. So I'm hopeful that we have a wonderful weekend. Superintendent Henry, flood him with your request. And let's see, make your proper case. We have to transition. And that's the point. And it all boils down to personal responsibility. But the state has done its part and will continue to do its part. But it's time that we put more responsibility on you. We're going to lessen a lot of the restrictions. And we want to get things to a state of normalcy again in this new normal. So thank you again. Do your part. Help us. It's time for us to move on. Thank you, Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Samuel. We have come to the question and answer segment, and quite a number of the questions today are thrown at Dr. Wilkinson. Dr. Wilkinson, you said last week that herd immunity is no longer a goal in the fight against COVID-19. In fact, you referenced the CDC. But earlier on, we spoke about herd immunity as being a goal. Some persons find this very confusing. Can you explain what you mean or what you meant?
Yes. Early on in this pandemic, scientists around the world had the goal of herd immunity, in that it was thought that if a significant proportion of populations became immune, this will halt the spread of the virus, such that even persons who were not vaccinated or could not be vaccinated, they will be protected by those who were vaccinated. And initially, based on scientific calculations, we spoke about a percentage of 70, 75. Some scientists even quoted a figure as high as 85%. However, as the vaccines developed and they were rolled out, we found out that the vaccines protected against severe disease, hospitalization, and death. But it did not stop one from becoming infected and possibly transmitting the virus to someone else. And what this means then is that you could have had a family of 10, 8 persons were vaccinated. However, because they could still transmit the virus, the 2 who were unvaccinated were not protected by the herd. And so because of the high transmissibility of the variants that have developed and the fact that the vaccines do not prevent you from transmitting the virus to someone else, that is why we say that the goal of herd immunity has been thrown out the window. However, what this means is that every single person who should be vaccinated must go out and get vaccinated. So the threshold is even higher. And so it comes down again to the individual responsibility. And so whereas earlier on there were even some healthy people who were telling me, oh, they're going to seek protection through herd immunity, you cannot get that protection anymore. And so we're asking every single person who should be vaccinated to go out and get vaccinated. And so there is no confusion, or there is no changing in the message. As the science develops, we come forward and we give you the information here on a weekly basis. And so I'm saying now that the goal of herd immunity and reaching 70, 80% is out the window. I've even said before that there will be no herd immunity there. There is no threshold that we reach and stop. And so we need to continue pushing the vaccination coverage.
Dr. Wilkinson, are you seeing unvaccinated patients? I am getting mixed messages on this, and I would like to hear it from the horse's mouth.
Ever since this pandemic started, I've been seeing patients both privately and in the hospital, and I see them irrespective of their vaccination status. However, what I do every single time I have the opportunity to have a one-on-one session with a person, I ask them about the vaccination status, and if they are unvaccinated, I try to find out why they're not and try and engage them and try to encourage them to go forward and get vaccinated, because I cannot sit by idly and see people die unnecessarily. We've had a number of preventable deaths, and we need to make sure that we stop this. And so everyone who has a platform and they know within their heart that the vaccines are safe and effective, they need to make sure that they encourage persons to go forward and get vaccinated. You can be just as dangerous if you sit idly and don't tell persons to get the protection that you have.
Don't go too far, Dr. Wilkinson. There's another for you. Dr. Wilkinson, can you explain the difference between an epidemic, pandemic, and endemic? Mr. Samuel referred to the endemic and the pandemic.
Okay, in the simplest terms, when there is a disease outbreak in a certain area, it is called an epidemic. So for example, with the COVID-19 disease, when the outbreak started in China and it was starting to overwhelm the healthcare system there, that was described as an epidemic in China. However, when the disease spread outside of that location and becomes a global spread, it is called a pandemic. And that is why in March 2020, last year, once the virus was gaining a foothold across the globe, it was called a pandemic. Now, as the variants develop, and we see, for example, Omicron has is presenting with mild disease, and as more persons become vaccinated and get immunity, and as persons get immunity through infection, the threat of the disease can be significantly lessened. Now, there might come a point in time where the virus may not completely go away, and so it will always be in the community, but at a lesser threat because of high vaccination thresholds and immunity from previous infections. And that is when it is said to be endemic. For example, the flu is endemic. It has been with us for a long time. We will always get a little spikes. And so the hope is that at some point in time, the COVID-19 will become endemic, where through vaccination it will not present a significant threat of severe disease, hospitalization, and death. We will continue to have spikes from time to time, the same way we have spikes with the flu during the flu season. And so that is what Mr. Samuels meant when he said that we are hoping to move towards the endemic stage. And there are a number of countries that are starting to relax restrictions and moving forward with the belief that COVID-19 is not going away and it will be endemic.
So we give Dr. Wilkinson a break now when we go to Dr. Laws. Dr. Laws, I have been double vaxxed. I have had my first booster. Do I have to go and get another booster? And when do I have to go and get it, if I have to get it?
A very good question, Mr. Williams. For now, based on the current scientific information, we are told that we are fully vaccinated once you've received your the primary series of the vaccine. So in our case, the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine, 2 doses, or the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine, 2 doses. And we are advised to now get a booster shot. This is given 5 months after you would have received the second dose of the primary series. So currently, based on the current information, we are advised to get 1 booster shot within 5 months of the second dose of the primary series. But as my colleague, Dr. Wilkinson, always says, COVID-19 is ever-changing, it's dynamic, it's mercurial, and just today, I shared with you that the Omicron variant now has, it's a family of 3 strains. And so the virus will continue to mutate, and there will be innumerable strains, and we do not know the ultimate effect of these mutations and if they would eventually evade the existing vaccines, the AstraZeneca or the Pfizer-BioNTech, and if there will be need for an additional booster shot or even other vaccines that are strain specific. And so for now, 1 booster shot. That's the short answer. Thank you.
A follow-up question is, does the booster shot wane after a period of time? We were told that the AstraZeneca, that it wanes, and so therefore that is why you must get a booster. But does the booster wane?
We understand that the viruses change. We have variants. And don't forget, the vaccines that were developed, they were developed against the original COVID-19 virus. However, they still give you significant protection against these variants. If, for example, the virus becomes endemic, it will still continue to change on a yearly basis. And so the same way with the flu virus, you need to have booster shots or a flu shot almost every year. There might come a point in time where you would need to have an additional booster. So it's not necessarily that the booster wanes, but the virus mutates, and so you would have to get vaccines specific to the mutations.
These set of questions are from SKN Vibes. Can the officials say the level of support, monetary-wise, that has been received thus far from donors? I guess he's asking the question in terms of the pandemic response. What additional support is being sought from donors? And can the medical officials say if they have reached out to India for further assistance with vaccines.
Okay, so I do not have all the figures with respect to donations, local and international, but I'm told, I'm updated that in terms of local donations, 300,000 is the figure. So we could always come back in terms of the fullness of response to that question. Now, in terms of reaching out to India for additional doses of vaccine, we all know that India was affected immensely by the Delta variant and the outbreak there, and so they had to halt their donation to other countries like ourselves. And so since then, we've received 2 of 3 tranches of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine from the United States government. And recently, we received commitment from the Republic of China, Taiwan, through its embassy, its locally based embassy, in terms of providing us access to additional doses of the AstraZeneca Oxford, AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine. I'm not sure. We have not been told the expected time of arrival of that batch. And again, we've also received commitment from the government of Bahamas in terms of providing us access to additional doses of the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine. We hope to receive the AZ vaccines from Bahamas sooner than through the Taiwanese embassy. And so those are the vaccines that we are expecting in short order. So the short answer is, at present, we are not expecting any vaccines from India at this point in time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Laws. COVID-19 has been with us for 2 years now, and so no private ward at the JNF hospital for 2 years. Is there any consideration for the building of a new private ward at the JNF hospital? I guess the medical chief of staff.
I know we seem to be getting a lot of questions today, but I want to remind persons that there is a press conference tomorrow. The Prime Minister will be here, and he will be able to answer some of these questions also. Our focus right now is on the safety and security of our persons. During the 2 years that we were focused here, we didn't hear anybody asking about private ward. We used the private ward to protect the persons who were infected with COVID, and we'll continue to do that until we get out of this pandemic. And so I don't believe that the health of anyone seeking care at the hospital for other diseases was compromised in any way. We have a number of private rooms on the other wards, surgical ward, medical ward, and we've been using those, okay? But our focus right now is to get through this pandemic. The light is at the end of the tunnel, and maybe we might be able to have the private ward back in use again.
Thank you, Dr. Wilkinson. We are nearing the end of the question and answer segment. Could someone explain in layman's terms why in recent times there has been a significant increase in the death rate in St. Kitts and Nevis, despite the fact that it has been reported that contracting the Omicron virus does not result in near as severe the symptoms or ailments as the other variants of COVID? All things being equal, of course, it is a bit confusing, to say the least.
Okay, I want to make a couple of points in answering that question. Number one, we've said that the Omicron variant is less severe than the previous variants. However, less severe does not necessarily mean mild. And so I believe that persons are mistaken in thinking that we're saying that Omicron is mild. However, although Omicron presents with less severe disease, because it is highly transmissible, you will have more persons being infected. Now, the young, healthy persons will do well and recover, and we've been seeing that happening. However, the persons who are at risk, those at the extremes of age, the elderly, the frail, those with pre-existing conditions, if they get infected, it can push them over the edge. And that is why we have seen here, and even in the United States and across the globe, despite the fact that Omicron on average might present milder disease to the individual because of the vast number of persons who will become infected, you have more vulnerable persons who will also become infected, and they can die. And that's why, again, it comes down to the individual responsibility. If you know that you are a young, healthy 30-year-old person who loves to go out on the strip, you love to go to party, you are dying for mass events to come back, but you have an elderly person at home, you need to make sure that that person gets protected also, so that if they get infected, they will not have severe disease, end up being hospitalized, and end up dying. Because the 11 persons who we spoke about who have died in this wave, these were 11 persons who were most likely at home in their bed, relaxing, trying to enjoy the twilight of their years, but the virus was brought home to them. And so we all need to play our part in this fight.
And this is our ultimate question for the day. Given that the US FDA could expand the use of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccines to children from 6 months to 5 years, can St. Kitts and Nevis see a possibility of the introduction of our toddlers, preschoolers getting vaccinated this year?
The answer to that, Mr. Williams, is yes. As a matter of fact, the Federation already requested vaccines through the CARICOM Secretariat for children 5 to 11 years, and when the vaccines for the younger age becomes available, we will put in our request also. Thanks.
Thank you. That was the full slate of questions for today, and we thank all those who submitted their questions and those who capably answered them. I know that sometimes people are confused. They've been confused by something Dr. Wilkinson said last week in terms of herd immunity, and I hope that that was clarified at today's briefing. Of course, we know that, science is always evolving. Things are changing, and so therefore we have to keep up with the evolving science. It is not something that is static. We're in a very dynamic environment at this time. I'm sure that the Honorable Attorney General will agree with me. He's a lawyer and he knows these kinds of things, that, things change, laws change over time and things like that. Thank you so much. I want to thank all the presenters today, the regulars, Dr. Cameron Wilkinson, Dr. Hazel Laws, Superintendent Henry, Mr. Abdius Samuel. We thank our new photographer here, Mr. Sherma Moore. I know people have been wondering who he is. He's a new photographer, work at SKNIS. We thank the Honorable Wendy Phipps, the Honorable Attorney General, Miss Ophelia Blanchard. We thank Miss Michelle Rodriguez, the PRO at NEMA, especially for capably chairing the ceremony earlier, in which the ambassador from the Republic of China, Taiwan, and the Prime Minister that they were here for the handing over of donation of supplies. It's not a donation of food, as was put out, but it's a donation of supplies, disaster supplies, and other supplies that came from Simply Help Foundation, an organization, a Taiwan organization situated in Los Angeles, California. And we thank ZIZ and all the media who continue to partner with us, Mrs. Christmas Jacobs for her gift of sign language, Dr. Marissa Carty, LeJohn James, and I think that I have named everybody. Thank you so much. We will see you next week for another NEOC briefing. I wonder sometimes if you're getting tired of these briefings. You know, sometimes, you know, the fatigue and the pandemic fatigue and all of that goes with it. But however, we understand the importance of bringing to you these briefings until we no longer have to bring them because of the importance of information sharing. Having knowledge is important to the management of anything. And so therefore, with what we provide you here with, the latest in the science and the answering of questions from the medical experts and so on, are all a part of helping you with managing your own personal life in terms of the COVID-19 pandemic. And I know that sometimes there's a lot of confusion out there on the internet, and let us not fool ourselves. The fake news is still there. The disinformation and misinformation campaign is still around, and so therefore that is why you have to go to the official source to get information. And so we thank you very much for joining us for these briefings. We will see you next week. Until then, I am Les Roy Williams. Take good care.
Is on.